Do you belong to a community of success? Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And I was inspired by a gentleman named Nicholas Cole. And I read an article that he wrote, and boy, was it true. You know, regardless of what industry you play in or what your undertaking in life is, the recipe for success is always the same. Always. And there are some basic components that you need to embrace in order to reach that level that we all seek to reach, that super success level. You know, the first thing that I want to talk about, and we're going to break this down in a couple of videos because it's so important. I just was enlightened by reading this article by Nicholas Cole. The first one is to find a community. And you know, upon reflecting about finding a community, I found that it's actually one of nature's laws if you stop and think about it. And the reason why I say that is what makes something a law is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, you get the same result. Does that make sense? In other words, you know, gravity is, whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, something that you drop from here is always going to fall down to the ground. So keep this in mind. This is a law, and I want to give you some examples, you know, because every success story involves a person at one time finding your tribe, your community, where your skills and your talent is nurtured. The community ends up playing a massive role in your development, and whether that community is discovered by somebody else or by you, it's the community that gives you the opportunity to grow with and alongside of other people. I want to give you 3 quick examples of that. The first one, and once again, this is what to me proves that it's a law, and I hadn't really thought of it this way. When I was a young puppy, Eli, about your age actually, probably, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, basketball was my life. And I, you know, played ball in, you know, 7th grade, 8th grade, and I was pretty good. Okay, I was the best player, you know, in my town, which was a small community. And then a new kid arrived in town by the name of Bruce Rosen. And Bruce Rosen was a pretty good basketball player. And he and I bonded immediately because we both loved to play ball. We didn't have a whole lot of other things in common, but we did love to play basketball. And so at that time in my life, every single day, he and I would get together on the phone. Okay, where do you want to go play today? And we'd play, and we would become rivals. People would look at us and you know, oh, Eli's dad is better, or Bruce is better, and it became competitive between us, and sometimes even bitter between us. But the point is, we stuck together and we worked together, and we had the same things in common that nobody else around us had, which was a tremendous desire to play ball. So we would always get together. His parents would drive us someplace, or my parents would drive us someplace to play ball. That was always the objective. And we learned, we advanced, we grew, we were able to envision becoming better players. And we became better players, and we worked hard. And you know what? All the way through freshman year in high school, you know, he and I were on the freshman team. We both started on the freshman team. And then as a sophomore, there were changing times. It was, you know, the sort of the era of the 60s, even though it was, you know, it was the late 60s. And Bruce became sort of a flower child for a couple of years until he came back into the mold as a senior. He didn't go out for basketball. You know, he went out as a freshman, didn't go out as a sophomore and junior, and then as a senior went out again, and he played. But losing those 2 years was critical to his particular growth as a player. And I continued to play and play and play and play. And I was the captain of the team and, the quarterback of the team and so on and so forth. But, when we worked together, even though we weren't doing it consciously, we both became better players by working together. Second example, I used to work with a network marketing company. And in this network marketing company, we sold a product, a legal product. And I started out with this company. I loved the idea of what they were selling and became pretty good at selling it. So much so that, in fact, within a few months, I was the #1 producer in the entire state of Indiana. And I'm moving up the ranks. And, the company is it was an international company, and they would have sort of a scoreboard of, who the top producers were. And so there I was, finally, hey, there I am. I made the list. I'm, number 10. And then I start moving up the list until finally I'm moving up. I'm number 3 on the list. Now I'm, of course, keeping track and seeing like, oh, hey, he's doing this, he's doing that, ego. And I'm watching my name come up the list. And then one day I get a phone call out of the blue and, hello? He goes, hi, Eli's dad, my name's Gary Weiss. Do you know who I am? I said, I sure do. Gary Weiss was the #1 producer in the entire company. And he lived in Texas. And I hadn't even, I knew who he was, but we'd never met. And so he called me and we started talking. And then every single day we would talk and we would go over things that we were doing. And we would not challenge each other per se, but we would challenge each other. We would challenge each other in that if Gary wrote a couple of clients, then I wanted to write a couple of clients. I mean, it became a competition. But we worked together and we went over closes together. And, he being the #1 producer in the company, he was watching me. He had his eye on the list also, and he saw me going up the list and he says, I wonder what this guy's doing that I'm not doing, or maybe there's something I can pick up from him. And of course, when the #1 guy in the company calls you and is working with you, you say to yourself, I can pick up some things from him. And I did, and he did. And what do you suppose happened? We both grew even more. Not only that, but something to keep in mind is when you get a workout partner, all right, see what we're talking about here is getting a community that believes what you believe in order to become a great achiever. Now with Bruce, our community was, basketball was very small. With Gary, the community was very large, but the community actually was very small because people were not producing the numbers that we produced. You see, in a network marketing firm, in this particular one, you needed to produce, I think it was like 75, you needed to make 75 sales in a month to be an executive director. And what most people did in network marketing is they would do, 3 or 4 a month, and they had built a team around themselves, and the team would produce the remainder, and then that's how they would get to 75. Not with Gary and me. What Gary and I did was we wrote somewhere between 80 and 100 applications ourselves every single month. So we had to produce, and we did. We worked together, and one of the things that I know drove Gary tremendously, and he's such a competitor, was he had to beat me every month. And truth be told, he did beat me every month, but it drove me to do more and more and more. So second place wasn't all that bad. I was, #1 in Indiana. I was with the exception of Gary, I was the #1 producer in the whole company. but I was able to have Gary as a workout partner. And it was so exciting when the company had a convention in, I believe, Las Vegas. I met him as his plane was, at the airport. Back then you didn't have to go through, 80 rounds of security. I met him as he was coming off the plane. We agreed to meet. He let me know. And it was an exciting time because we'd been speaking together for months and months. And finally we got to meet. And it was just a tremendous, quote unquote, partnership without being a partnership. We were workout partners. We worked hard together. So there's two examples, okay? One, Bruce Rosen as a basketball player, Gary Weiss as a sales producer. And the third example of community, of the necessity of having a community, was when I worked with a company called Copa, which was a marketing firm for one of the largest insurance companies in the world, one of the top 5 insurance companies in the world. I was working with them, and what got me working with them was I was living in Santa Cruz, California, which is a gorgeous, beautiful place to live. And I'm, originally from the East Coast, from the Boston area, and I'd been living in California for a while, and my dad came out for a visit. So he comes out for a visit, and I'm in Santa Cruz, and I'm working, and I was actually selling belt buckles at that time. Not individually on the street, but with a company of like a mom and pop company where we would go to various places, to conventions, and sell them to like police departments, fire departments, big groups. But anyway, that's what I was doing, but it was living kind of a casual life, just barely getting by. I mean, I was young, I was a puppy, I was in California, I was in Santa Cruz, I was playing a lot of basketball. I mean, it was a great life. And my dad came out and, so what are you doing? He introduced me to this, introduced me to her, introduced me to him, and he looked at me, and finally, like the day that he was leaving to go back to Boston, he says to me, "You know what? It really pains me to say this, but you're a bum. You're doing a little work, but you're a bum. What are you doing? What's your goals? What's your ambitions? What is it you want to achieve? You're a bum." And I loved and respected my dad, Eli, your grandfather, more than you can imagine. He was a great dad. And that hurt me. And that was a aha moment for me. And I said, you know what? He's right. I need to get on the stick and get going. So I started answering ads in the newspaper, and I hooked up with this company, this marketing firm called Copa, and they were in San Jose and I was in Santa Cruz. I mean, it was like a 45, 50-minute drive, and I went to the job interview, and it was a group interview, and they explained what the company did and how you could advance, and I said, wow, this is good stuff. I'm helping people, I'm helping myself, I'm growing, I can have my own office, I can make a lot of money, and I can be doing something that I really believe in. It was sales, and I already had a little bit of a history of being a pretty good salesperson, and the objective was to be a manager. And I started working with that company, and every day I would go in, you had to get a license. I had to wait like a couple of months to get the license because of the red tape involved. So I'm going every day, I'm committed, and I'm becoming part of that company, part of its culture. All of the things that I was doing, playing ball and being a bum and hanging around with people, completely stopped. It was a complete right there. And I joined that community, and it became a part of me, and my life was dedicated to that. So 6 days a week I am dedicated to this community, to this idea of helping the masses. That's what the product was. It was a retirement program for Joey Lunch Bucket. Not the upper crust or the lower crust, but what we used to call middle America. We refer to him as Joey Lunch Bucket. And I was just taken with this. And I was reading and I was listening to to not CDs, we didn't have CDs then, we're listening to tapes, and I'm going back and forth, over the mountain from Santa Cruz to San Jose, and it just completely took over my life, and I became part of that community. And then once I got my license, started to sell and became good at that and learned the things of management and so on and so forth, and ultimately became one of the leaders, a divisional vice president with that company. But the point is, it took that community to take me from being a bum to being someone of some substance in the company, and of being substance to myself, where I felt like I was doing something worthwhile. So find one of the key elements to the success formula is finding the community that you need to belong to, that's going to help catapult you to the position that you desire and deserve. And once again, it's a law. It's not something that maybe this, maybe that. It's something you can count on, because when I was when I was playing basketball with Bruce Rosen or working with Gary Weiss, I wasn't thinking about, well, gee, Einstein says that this is the law, that if you do that, it just happened. And the same thing with working with the greater community, the company Copa. It's just, when you belong to that community and you give yourself to that community and you become a member of the tribe, that puts you in a position to achieve much more. More on this topic the next time we get together, and because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, remember, get a workout partner, get a community, get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.